Faith, what now? Oh, yeah. If I'm ever interviewed as one of my specialties, like the doctor of Humanics or land mammal psychologist, by the way, nobody's ever been upset with my resume saying land mammal psychologist. And that's a story for another day. But, and somebody asks me about faith. Well, I'm going to have to define that word, and I'll actually include a definition or two or three that I would use in the description of this YouTube video. And so faith, F-A-I-T-H, right? Not F-A-T-E. And for me, what I do is I call it, based on its psychological description, is a human thinking tool of last resort. And it's very close to violence as also being a tool of last resort for those that have not developed, more sapient or sentient types of human thinking tools. And those would be some, like violence and faith, that you would use very, very rarely. And the more rarely you use it, the more of an indicator it is that you possess human standard types of human thinking tools. And of course, it depends, what environment you live in, where maybe violence for the sake of self-defense of your life. And I don't mean like what the elites of Israel are doing when they believe a people or babies they'll never meet that are innocent are a threat to them. I'm talking about like a cougar jumping on you. And I don't mean a cougar far away. I mean a cougar jumping on you. Violence is extremely important if you want to survive. So it's very important we define what would be self-defense in that way if you're going to use violence. And violence in physical means, let's say, is not the same as shooting a missile from, kilometers or miles away. That's, again, there's a limit to how much you can consider that, without being a moron, self-defense, right? So I wanted to say that faith and violence are very similar on the scale of responses to creatures with a big brain like this. They are a way to show our devolution when they're used more and more commonly by the norm. And sadly, there's always been links, because they are tools of last resort, between those that use faith as is properly defined. They don't, but they call it that, as a 90% of how they think, And you can see there's a link between that and behaviors of violence, not just against other groups, but among themselves, because they are tools of last resort. They don't have a lot of other skill sets in their thinking tools to be employing when, living the life or managing the life or responding to a scenario, action, reaction. So I think once I saw somebody with a lot of followers, somebody that gets invited somewhere. And again, this video is what if I was invited and somebody says, what's your opinion about faith? Well, I saw somebody say that there was an increase in atheists, or a decrease in religious folks. And I kind of said, well, show me the data for you saying this, because for me, it would be the opposite. There's more and more people declining in the complexity or education or reason-based abilities to have thinking tools. So, of course, it means that violence and faith, as they define it in their religious cults, and by the way, all religions are cults. There's no way to remove them from the definition of cult. I mean, if I define cult as well in the description, and I might, you'll see that there's a way that people that are not of the same faith would be defined as inferior in some way. And if they're not clearly defined as equals, or the case should often be superiors, then, there is a flaw with this religion, which of course makes it in the realm of cults. And I see it again today, right? I see places where I go and I share in their activities, and I say I'm not religious, and they have activities that I can do there because they have facilities, like with speakers, and I'd like to give volunteer programs, and I approach and I partake in their social activities, but I'm not religious. As you can tell, I am still an outcast, excluded from making their own communities and themselves a better place and a better people, because in their eyes I'm inferior, and it's sad, but it's getting worse.